maybe we have to call it a day. I am walking back to the station now. Maybe we don't have to call it a day. Oh my goodness, wait for this.
Welcome to Liverpool, the 5th largest city in the United Kingdom. Originally a port, it is now a thriving city thanks in parts to its regeneration, having been the European Capital of Culture in 2008. It now has the second highest number of national museums, listed buildings and listed parks in the UK, with only London having more. It is also England's only UNESCO City of Music and has produced many notable musical acts, whilst musicians from the city have released more UK #1 hit singles than anywhere else in the world. But is it at all Flutifull? I was on a mission to find out.
So I'm taking a stroll along Liverpool's very famous Albert Dock, because down here, although there might not be any flutes, I am pretty sure there is something that you're going to want to see.
Having arrived here on Liverpool's waterfront in December 2015, this is the famous Beatles statue, a tribute to Liverpool's most famous sons of rock and roll, the Fab Four. Donated by the famous Cavern Club, the placement of the statue coincided with the 50-year anniversary of the band's final gig played in Liverpool at the Liverpool Empire Theatre, and according to Visit Liverpool, it's the city's most popular selfie spot. The figures are larger than life size and weigh 1.2 tonnes in total. They were sculpted by Andrew Edwards. Having visited the statues, I could then not resist a visit to the Beatles Story exhibition. Also situated further down the Albert Dock, this opened on the 1st of May 1990. With a guided audio commentary and personal video player to hand, you're invited to make your way through a complete history of the band, starting with details of their very first instruments and their early beginnings at the Casbah Coffee Club. And of course, the famous Cavern Club. I really love this complete reproduction of the Cavern Club, which really gives you a sense of what it was like. Here's the coffee bar. And here is that famous stage where all the bands that performed used to write their names at the back. And thanks to the magic of modern technology, yes, here I am. Another particular highlight for me was seeing my hometown of Hull listed on the Beatles tour schedule for 1964. How exciting is that? The Abbey Road section of the experience features this small tribute to producer George Martin, a handwritten score of his string parts to the Beatles' Yesterday, and in the top corner I was very excited to see who he attributed it to. Although the Beatles sadly never played the flute, they did use some flute sounds on many of their tracks, and these were often produced using this fabulous instrument, the Mellotron Mark II. Whilst it is unknown whether this particular instrument was ever used by the Beatles, this is owned by Chip Hawkes of the Tremolos and was previously owned by Jeff Lynne. Having thoroughly enjoyed the Beatles story, I continued the hunt further, and next stop had to be the famous Matthew Street, home to the Cavern Club itself. Directly opposite the famous club, you'll find the Cavern Pub, which to its exterior has this wall of fame. This highlights the names of 1,800 bands and artists who appeared at the club between 1957 and 1973. I sadly couldn't find any flute players on the list, but it's certainly a fabulous reminder of Liverpool's musical heritage. And yes, flute hunting can be thirsty work, you know, so I couldn't resist popping in for a quick drink. sadly closed its doors in 1973, the club reopened on my first birthday in 1984, and the door was moved. This is the site of the original door, which outside has a statue to another famous artist. Can you guess who it is? Yes, of course, it's Cilla Black. Towards the other end of Matthew Street, you'll find this. It's the Beatles Museum. On display here, you'll find around 300 original items, which are arranged over 3 floors, with each floor dedicated to a different period in the Beatles' history. I really enjoyed many of the more unusual facts on offer here at the museum, including, did you know that Paul McCartney and Pete Best, the original drummer of the Beatles, were arrested for suspicion of arson in 1960 when on tour in Germany? By now, I was thoroughly invested in the Beatles story, and I could not resist a visit to the childhood homes of John Lennon and Sir Paul McCartney. Due to copyright restrictions, no videography or photography is allowed inside either of the houses, but I can assure you I enjoyed a few minutes playing the very first piano of Sir Paul McCartney, which was indeed a real honour. Here's a fun Flutifull fact for you folks. This drain pipe at the back of Sir Paul McCartney's house was one that he used to climb up to get back into his house after being locked out after a gig at night. After enjoying being fully immersed in the story of the Beatles, I had to get back to my original mission of flute hunting here in Liverpool, and if I was going to find one anywhere, surely it would be here. This is the concert hall built in the 1930s, which is home to the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic, a music organisation based in Liverpool that manages a professional symphony orchestra, concert venue and extensive programmes of learning through music. Its orchestra, the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra, is the UK's oldest continuing professional symphony orchestra.
So, there are Liverpool Philharmonic is in the background, and I thought if I was going to find any flutes anywhere, then it might be there. So, maybe we have to call it a day. I am walking back to the station now. Maybe we don't have to call it a day. Oh my goodness, wait for this. Literally walking down the road, and look what I've spotted. It's a pub called The Flute. That's right folks, you saw it here first. So I've had to cross over the road, but look at the sign! Look at the sign folks. I have never seen a pub called The Flute before, and it's even got a accurate looking concert flute on the sign. That is pretty damn awesome.
So, of course, I had to venture inside, and after talking to the lovely barman, we decided that the name was probably just chosen to go with the word Firkin. It was the Firkin brewery chain that first opened a pub here and named it the Flute and Firkin until June 2002, when it was sold and became the Flute. And yes, unfortunately, apart from the lovely flute sign outside, this is the only other nod to the flute, and yes, it's an oboe. Even the barman was bemused. So there we have it. That brings us to the end of our flute hunting here in Liverpool. Although I didn't find many flutes, I certainly had fun exploring the story of the Beatles, and that for me makes it fully flutable. Until next time folks, thanks for watching.